All right, so today's Friday, April 24th, and here's what I got done this week. So somebody had mentioned sanding down the paint that was on there. I think it's probably mostly done before you clear coat or something, but I had a couple of drips on both of the doors on the first time around. So I ended up hitting the entire door with wet sanding it. I started at, well, on the drips 220 and working my way all the way up to 800, and yeah, I think maybe I went to 1,000. I think I ended at 800 wet sanding, and then I hit the doors with another coat, and man, that made a big difference. So it's silky smooth now. Really happy with the way this turned out. So yeah, so that was well worth it. It's definitely not going to be practical for the entire plane, but just thought I'd share that little tip. So if there's any part that you don't like how it comes out or whatever when you're doing your painting, if somebody's doing their painting, that was a pretty worthwhile tip. Another thing that I did for the door is I built my rig up a little taller so that the door was hanging on here, so it was really close to the ground before, and then this dust is hard to deal with. So I sweep it out pretty often to, sweep it out the fans there and have them blow it outside. But it's every time you paint, I mean, the dust is just paint that lands on the ground. So then I did the same thing. I by hanging the door up a little higher, I get a lot less little particles in there. So anyway, I'll get to the interesting part now. I got the inside of the canopy painted. So of course, it pretty much goes without saying, you do not want to paint the canopy while it's already on the plane. That being said, it did come out pretty good, given the condition that I had to paint it upside down, and when you have to lean in to paint it, you end up touching this edge or whatever, so you're trying to kind of I guess you can't see it in the video, but you're trying to kind of lean in through without touching anything, but also spray the paint where it needs to go. So it took me a couple of days to get it to a satisfactory level, but it is very nice. In my opinion, I like the way it came out, including kind of some of the spots. There was a serial number scratched in it there, so I bondoed that up and got it. I guess you could see a little bit of a wave in the camera there, but yeah, you can't see it in the naked eye unless you're looking for it. So yeah, it came out really good. I got the seat belts installed. The rear side panels are ready. Before I rivet them on, I want to double check how the upholstery kind of mates to them. There's this top row of holes here that goes into the, underneath that is just the canopy there. So you don't want to, I don't want to drill them out and put rivets there. I'm 50-50. They might be match drilled to the canopy and then put riv nuts to hold the upholstery part down. So I want to double check that before I go through with it. But yeah, everything else goes together pretty good. One thing I did do was, let's see if I can get it here, is here where the seat belt comes out, I took my hand seamer and just gave it a little slight flare there, because otherwise this can really kind of clamp down on the seat belt and impede on its movement. But it seems to be much better when you just give it a little bit of a flare out. You can see it there a little better. So yeah, the instructions for the seat belt are marginal, I guess. It shows you how to disassemble the reel. One thing that it doesn't mention, and it took me a little while, I actually took apart one of the reels to see how it worked in order to figure it out. You have to hold it exactly as it sits here, because there's a little ball bearing in there that, so that when you pull on the seat belt, the ball kind of comes up and stops the belt from coming out. So that's kind of like the auto lock for if it crashes or whatever, for impact. And that ball, if you tilt the mechanism just like even 10 degrees off of vertical, it locks automatically. So you're sitting there trying to pull out the belt and it's locked, and it took me a while. Like I said, I had to take it apart to figure it out. But yeah, if you hold it perfectly straight up and down vertical, the belt comes out, and so then you can move on. The seat belts come with all the bolts kind of in the seat belt kit, but it doesn't tell you where they go. So you kind of have to think about it logically. One of the bolts, let's see, so mine only came with one of these, so I've got to get one of them replaced. But one bolt has like a shoulder on it. Oh, come on, focus. Like a shoulder on it that goes in the center of here, and then then there's a spacer. So I'm assuming that the spacer goes on the top here to allow for some rotation. And the same thing, the shoulder for sure goes on the top here to allow the top to rotate. And like I said, this one has the shoulder bolt, that one does not. I think it's called a shoulder. Anyway, you know what I'm saying, I hope. And then it also doesn't mention where the front of the seatbelt goes, but that's kind of common sense. And then that doesn't rotate, so it also doesn't really tell you the orientation, but of course, that's logical as well. So yeah, I think because of the painting, I had to kind of leave the shop early twice this week to let the paint dry before I could really get moving on anything. Most of the work that I need to do immediately, well, I'm waiting on several parts so I can finish the wings up and then get everything painted. Well, just that wing rib over there, and most of the work left is on the engine. I got to run the fuel lines and stuff. So with the entire fuselage in the booth, that's all I was left with. So yeah, I had to leave the shop a little early, so I didn't get, say this every week, I didn't get quite as much done as I was hoping to, but yeah. So the hole saw here, the measurements in the manual say 92 millimeters down from some imaginary datum above the edge of the skin. It's 85 millimeters down from the top edge of the skin for anybody who's about to have to drill that hole. Drills that super easy, a hole saw, no problem. So yeah, I think that's it for this week. And next week when I have my answer, I'll rivet those guys down and get the autopilot push rods put in. It's kind of early today. I've got family coming in to visit. Otherwise I was going to get that done today, but oh well, it's quick and easy stuff. So yeah, I'll be back at it next week with hopefully all the fuel lines and that. I'm going to start to look into installing the windows in the doors, because I can do that while it's not on the plane. I don't have the hinges. That's another part that I'm waiting for to install them on the plane. Although, kind of thinking about the order of operations, I might save that. I might try to put the windows in and then paint the outside, because that's going to be all one color on the canopy, and the outside of the door is going to be the same color. So I might try to put the window in these, get the outside painted so the doors are just done, waiting for the hinges to install them when they're done. And I might try to paint the canopy, the plane, with no doors in, just kind of tape it off and block this off. I will put these windows in when the time comes. So yep, sorry, not a super interesting update this week. Have a good weekend.